Hi everyone, and welcome once again to Microsoft Powernight series. This is the third edition. It is an awesome time because we have in the house Microsoft most valuable professional in person of Vivek Bavishi. Today we're going to be having an awesome time together. It is also a very timely period. The Microsoft Ignite event commenced today, and a lot of exciting features cutting across Microsoft Power Functions, Microsoft Mesh. A lot of things have been, revealed to us or introduced to us by the Microsoft team. Today, we're going to learn something very practical, just like we did in the last episode, where we learned how to build a payment memo approval solution by leveraging on applications and services within Office 365. We used Microsoft SharePoint as our backend. We built a Microsoft form as our front end with an upload feature. We also use Power Automate to connect and do the approval routing. Today, Vivek is going to share with us how to build this app using Microsoft Power Apps. Can I also mention that we are in the second wave of digital transformation? A lot of things are going so fast in terms of advancement of technology. And it is by staying tuned and riding on this second wave as early as possible. That is when you benefit so much from it. Take, for example, if you take longer time to start learning Power Apps, the learning curve, although it's going to be very smooth, but you will enjoy if you start now than when you start later in the year because new features are being updated every day, new capabilities, and new opportunity to learn. All right, join me, guys, as I make welcome Vivek Bavishi to Microsoft Power Night episode. Hi, Vivek.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you kind of inviting me for this, and I'm super excited to kind of just share whatever I have learned. And it's great to see this initiative going on, and I'm happy to be a part of this.
Awesome. There's so many exciting and interesting things about Vivek. I will allow him to share that. While we're preparing for this session, I just asked question about his background. So, and what he shared with me, I don't want to hold it back. So, I'm going to ask him again to just give us a brief introduction about himself and touching his background, especially work experience. So, maybe that will inspire some of us. So,
Sure.
Vivek, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I currently work as a senior consultant at Hitachi Solutions America. And it's we were just talking before we started this that I have no background in developing or anything like that. I my bachelor's is in electrical engineering. I did master's in marketing, and then I was working for a company, basically doing marketing, product marketing stuff. And then Power Apps kind of caught my eye. I was kind of intrigued by it. I always had this kind of on the side. I would do some development stuff like HTML, CSS, website development. So I always had that kind of inspiration, I would say, to learn these things on the side, but never for my main job. But then a year ago, I switched it within my company. I switched roles to start doing more dynamics and Power App stuff because I had before that I was doing it like 10-20% of my time, but then switched on to doing it 100%. And now I'm working for Hitachi Solutions, working with different customers on their Power Platform, or basically a digital transformation requirement, as you mentioned earlier, right? It's like the second wave of digital transformation, and it's just fun, kind of working on these projects where you can get things done so quickly and so soon, which earlier would have taken months or years. Things can now happen with these low-code application platform within like weeks. So it's been. I have changed my careers because of our platform, and I hope everyone here can progress in their career as well with Power Platform. It's a great place, exciting place to be right now, and I hope everyone can learn more today or learn something more today, which can help them in progressing.
Wow, that's awesome introduction. And if you listen carefully to Vivek, something interesting about him was that he was in marketing, was doing more marketing role, sometimes ago. even though it has an engineering background, but it was doing marketing role. You know what that means? So this new space of Microsoft Power Platform is not a background dependent. Joe Camp, was more of a finance person, was working in the financial industry before, and he came into this space. And here, Vivek is working full time as Microsoft Power Platform consultant. You know what that means? So, and it's something that we can all develop as skill. So today we're going to go further on that journey. Personally, I'm excited and I'm ready to learn. So, before I move on, I just want to share with us briefly what happened in Microsoft Ignite event today. Charles Lamella made an introduction, an hour before that time on LinkedIn, and he introduced Microsoft Power Function. When I saw that, I said, what is this again? Microsoft is always there to create that excitement. They always perceiving what needs to be done, making the trade, blazing the trade, showing us the path to follow. And from Charles' explanation, he is saying that this programming language will help to standardize the operation or the industry, let's call it the low code application development space. So my question to you, Vivian, before we start is,
Sure.
how will this change the low-code application development space? What value do you think standardizing, introducing a standard programming language will bring to that space?
Yeah, no, this is a great announcement, and it's definitely something really exciting. The first thing I feel like maybe the different people will have different ways to say it, but I am calling it Power FX. So
Hmm.
I think it. So the first thing to look at it is now you can say, I mean, it's the same. I would say the language that Power Apps is using today, but they're making it open. They're going to make it open source. It's going to be a language, and when you think of it as a language, you think it's more like developer stuff, but this is going to be a new thing. I mean, there isn't the low code app like language today, and this is going to change that space. So Power FX is going to be something that today Power Apps is already using, but they want to standardize it, make it like this low code application language, which is used across the Power Platform. So it's really exciting, and the other tangible benefit is you can put it in your list of achievements once you know a bit of Power Apps, that you know Power FX. It's
Wow.
another skill to add, right? So
True.
there's a lot of things associated with it. It's just not. I mean, it's not just something for tech. It's helping people like us to just, I mean, show our skills as well, right? I mean, if you know all this, you can show that you are good at Power FX. Visual Studio Code might have it. I mean, any developer platforms will start having this as a language, and that's the big thing about it. So there is still a long way to go. This is just an announcement, and I'm pretty sure they're going to come up with a lot of new things associated with it in the coming near future.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that. I love the word power effect. It makes a lot of sense. I can then keep on developing my skill as well and add that to my skill catalog.
Yep.
Awesome. I see a lot of possibility, bring a lot of addition coming into this power effect. Some things that have been restrictions on maybe Power Platform before, Power Apps, you'll be able to achieve those level of granularity using this programming language today. All right. And all right, we then want to move in straight into the use case that we are going to consider today, which is a memo approval solution. And I'm going to hand it over now to Vivek.
All right. Thank you. I'm gonna share my screen.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. That's good. All right. So today's solution, we're gonna talk about, as Alnaveju mentioned, the memo approval solution. So we're gonna focus more on the Power Apps approach. As he mentioned, you have already covered the forms approach, where you take inputs on a form and then send it to through a flow and get the approval. But today we're going to look more from a um, from a PowerApps approach. So before I do that, I know I already talked about my introduction, but I generally have this slide, which so I've been a business applications MVP for 2 years. Um, work as a senior consultant, and if you are not aware about this Power Addicts term yet, you probably are already one. Power Addicts is something which a bunch of us who are passionate about the platforms kind of, I would say, started. But then it has become a self-propagating kind of community of people who help out each other, as we are doing today. So hashtag Power Addict or hashtag Power Addicts is just something to associate every person who's a part of this community. And it's a great community. I mean, there are people always ready to help each other out. So if you are not following this, just follow hashtag Power Addicts on Twitter, and you'll know what's happening around that space. These are some of the places where you can find me. On Twitter, I am that_API_guy. I have a YouTube channel, so I do a lot of API videos, so you can look at that. And this is my blog, thatapiguy.tech. So feel free to check those out. So this is the process flow that I know the screen might not look that big enough. I mean, the screenshot is probably not giving out all the text. But what we'll try to do is PowerApps will be our front end. Um, Flow will be the thing that we'll use for approval. And then SharePoint will be our back end, basically to save the data for the payment memos. So let's look at what we're going to do. So the first thing I'm going to build is a SharePoint list. I'll show you how to do that. And then before I jump on to kind of showing you the Power App, like a separate Power App, I'll also show you how to create a customized Power App for a SharePoint list. And I'll show you when we do that, and you'll know what it means. And then we'll also look at the approval flow. There is actually a template that you can use out of the box, which Power Automate offers you. And we'll try to use that and tweak that so that you don't have to build a lot of things from scratch. So this solution today, we're going to build it within this hour. So it kind of tells you how you can also build it within an hour, at least the basic framework, and then customize it for your need. All right, so I'm going to jump on to this. Okay. So this is the SharePoint list. I've already created one, but what I'll do is I'll go through each of these columns one by one and show you what it means. So the title is something that actually, before I even go into this, if you are not aware about how to create a SharePoint list, you can go to your, so I generally go to office.com. Will be the main spot. So if you log in through your Microsoft Office 365 credentials, this is the place that you will see stuff. And then you can click on SharePoint. And then within SharePoint, if you are a part of a SharePoint site, you could use that already. Or otherwise, you will have to get a SharePoint site created through your IT admins. But yeah, you should be already part of something and you can use that, or otherwise ask your IT admin to create one for you so that you can do some testing or some demo stuff there. So I have this SharePoint site already with me. So to create a SharePoint list, I would go to a site contents and then click on new and list. So this will ask me if I want to create it from an Excel, from some template already. So there are some good templates here if you want to use. But for our use case, none of the templates kind of match exactly. So we'll create it from blank. So I'm just going to call it payment memos demo, and then click on create. So as I told you, I already created the list. So I just wanted to show you how to create this. But I'll go back to that list, which I already created, and show you each of the columns that I've added in this list. So the first column kind of comes default, the title column. Um, you shouldn't remove that. Try to use that for, it's kind of the unique, not the unique identifier, but it is kind of a required field. So you'll need that. So try to use that as some of the name of the memo or something to go along with it. Um, business unit. So in a lot of cases, you might have different departments within your organization. So you want to give your users an option to choose a department. So I've added some departments here: marketing, sales, operation, finance. You can add more. You can choose a color for each as well, and then save it. Activity type. This one is okay. Let's say you want to either raise a payment request or you want to do some expense. So if you have some types of memos, you can add those types here. Again, once you have added that, so it's a choice field, by the way. So there are different types that you get for a column. I'm using the choice column for this, choice type of column. The amount would be the amount that you want to enter in. When you're adding this column, there's an option to add a currency column. So you can choose that. And then within the currency, there is actually an option for even, I think the currency, I forget the name of the currency, but there is to choose Nigeria as well here. So you can use that. So yeah, I already have that amount field entered, but I wanted to show you how to add that currency column. Some of the columns are there by default. You don't have to add these columns, like created, which is the date when the memo was created, and who created it. So whoever creates the memo, it will automatically add those fields in here. Status, I added this column manually. So this column will tell us whether the status of the memo is pending, approved, or rejected. So you can use, if you have more status based on the requirement that you have, you can add those here. And I'll show you how to change these in the flow. So that's all the columns that we need. So generally, if you have a SharePoint list, you'll come here and add a new record to it, right? So you'll click on new, and this gives me an option to add all these like titles. So let's say I want to do this, I don't know, buy some merchandise, buy merch. So name that. I've also added like a note section so that I can add some description. Business unit, let's say marketing. Raise a payment request. Amount, I can say, let's say 100. And then status. Now, this is the place where you're like, oh, I don't want the user to choose the status column. So how do I hide this? So there's an option to hide the columns here. So you can either do that, or otherwise we will do. So this is the first thing that I want to show you is customize with PowerApps. So before I show you that, I just want to, so you can add an attachment here as well. So you can add the memo. There's a document associated with like a PDF. You can attach that. And then we'll save this. So this kind of adds the column. So now what if I don't want the user to get this option, right? So I will click on edit columns and say status, don't show it, save. All good, right? So that status doesn't show. But let's say I want this form to show maybe some more details, or maybe catch some, I mean, I want to edit the format of this. I don't like this format a bit. So I can click on customize with PowerApps. And what this does is it gives me an option to modify the form. with Power Apps. So I can choose the layout, I can change things, I can maybe add a default to it, I can also control the value of one column based on the value of another column. So I'll show you what I mean by that. Skip on this. So you see here, it shows all these columns. It doesn't show the status one. And what I can do is I can just click on File. So right now the changes have been saved. I haven't done any change, but it's already saved. But I can just click on Back to SharePoint. And now if I click on New, that's strange. I guess I should make one change and then hit the publish. Sorry about that. And so this is the first option that I'm showing. I'll also show you an option to just create a Power App without this customized. I mean, this is a customized form that you can create for SharePoint lists. But if you think you just want to build a Power App, you don't want to show the SharePoint list at all to your users, then we'll create a standalone Power App for that. So we'll come to that in some time. But before that, I'll just want to show you how this customized form works.
Yeah, it is really exciting to see that with a click of a button, you can convert your SharePoint list to an application, a functional one.
Yep.
That's within 5 minutes. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I just changed the height of one of the fields so that I can save and publish it. So I'll save, publish, and then I can click on back to SharePoint. And now if I click on new, that is strange. I don't know why it's happening now. It's always messes up when you're doing a demo.
You want to do you want to refresh the SharePoint?
That's actually a good point. There you go. Refresh always works. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So yeah, so now you see instead of that SharePoint form, it gives you this Power Apps form.
This look UI friendly now. User experience. It's easy to interact with
Yep.
this form than the former one. Oh, that's nice.
So you can choose this. And also what you can do is, let's say for marketing, you have some types of activities. And for finance, you have a different set of activities. So what you can do is you can filter one activity, the activity type based on what that business unit was selected. And all this, you can do it in the Power App, right? So you can customize a lot of things using Power Apps rather than using the SharePoint form. So I know this looks really simple. I don't have to do a lot, but in your requirement, I mean, when you get into like the detailed requirements of any solution, it needs some more customizations. So you might need something like that and you use Power Apps. So this is the customized form with Power Apps. I want to focus more time on the standalone Power App, and that's what I'm going to show in a second here. So as Olanraveju mentioned, with a click of a button, you were able to create a customized form for with Power Apps for the SharePoint list. Now, again, with a click of a button, we'll create a Power App which uses the SharePoint list. So I'm going to click on this Power Apps button, right? I mean, it's so convenient right here on the SharePoint list. And then I'll click on Create an App. So it'll ask me to name this. So I'll call it Payment Memos. Create. And that's it. It will do some magic in the background and it will create the Power App which connects to the SharePoint list. And you will have a functioning app ready without doing anything.
Wow. So in traditional app development, you often have the UI, separately developed. You have the backend, which seems like the SharePoint we have now. And we have to write some code to connect the feeds we have created on the UI, connect them to the equivalence tables at the backend. But this is done automatically for us now, I assume.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you see this app that got created here, if I click on play,
Wow.
so this one was the item that I already added.
Yeah.
So I can click on that. It shows me the details.
Wow.
I can say I want to edit this. So edit this item I want to say by merchandise, because merch was not a good enough word. So I'll say by merchandise, and it's probably 150. And
Wow.
then I can say, okay, forgot to add some notes. And then hit this tick mark, and that's it. I mean, I haven't touched the code behind the screens at all, and it's doing all this. So I was able to edit this. If I go back, I can also actually, so if you see here, it hasn't refreshed, right? So I just click on this refresh button and it should have refreshed, but I guess
Yeah,
it
yeah,
didn't.
it's there
Yeah.
now. I can see by merchandise.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it has. Okay, my bad. And then if I click on plus, I can add one more record here. So buy more merchandise. And I can choose that again, activity type, all those things as I was able to do in the SharePoint list. When I say this is 50, need more for an event. And then I'll just click on, let's attach a file. I don't know, I have some file here. I'll just attach that and I'll click. And there you go. It has created the new record. So as I showed you, this app was created in the backend. I mean, everything was created for you. You didn't have to do a single thing. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what if I wanted to show some more fields here? So I'll just close. So that was the play mode of that app. Now I want to edit some things in this. So if you see here, there are three screens for the user's experience. So the one is the browse screen, which is to browse the list of items in that SharePoint list. The second screen is the details list. So this is to see the details behind that specific SharePoint item, I mean the list item. And then there is an edit screen. So the edit screen is for editing the existing record. So all these things can be done from these three screens. And the edit screen actually works as a new form screen as well. So the same form can be used either to edit an existing item or to create a new item. So we'll see that in a second here. So the first thing I want to show you on the browse screen, there are some controls. So all these things are basically controls. This control is called a gallery control. Makes sense, right? It's a gallery. I can view a list of things within it. So it has some, as you can see, some, I would say, code behind it. It's not exactly code, it's low code, but it it's similar to Excel. So if you have used Excel, it will kind of look similar. And this is going to be called PowerFX from now on. So this is all going to be a part of this new low code language, but it's very similar to Excel. So you can see sort by columns. So I want to do sorting by columns. I want to filter the payment memos. So it's connected to the SharePoint list. And then it has some formula to do the sorting here. So we won't go much into detail of that, but let's look at if I want to add one more field here, right? So I will, let me zoom in a bit. Click on the edit, gives me an edit button here. So I click on that. And then I can click on insert. Let's say I want to insert one more label to show some more things. So I'm going to click insert label, and this is the amount, right? So I want to show this amount, and we'll say I want to show this amount here. So it all defaulted to amount, but let's say I want to show some other field, right? Uh, so I'll copy the same thing, copy this label. I can say copy, and then again I can click paste. So that's another label. Let's say I want to show the notes in this. So I'm going to say this item. So this item is a way to refer to the specific item within that list of items. So this item dot um, refer to the notes. Notes. It shows me the notes now. And
Wow.
as you can see, you can add more stuff here. You can once we have the approval laid out, I'll show you how we'll see the status as well. So you can see all that things right in here in this gallery, and then you'll have the option to edit things, change things, and basically have this kind of app created for you without you having to do that much. So so yeah, I guess any questions so far? Like,
Yeah.
have we
At
anything on the chat?
the moment, there are no questions, but I've
Okay.
dropped it in case there are one or two questions. They will definitely ask. I
Okay.
must say that I'm learning a lot right now, and I believe you're a good teacher because the way you've been taking us is from known to unknown, and I've been following through. I think that's why there is no question at the moment. Definitely,
Good.
when there are questions, we're going to see that on the chat.
Sure. Yeah. No questions means either two things. Either you're understanding everything, or I'm a really bad teacher and you're not able to get anything.
Well, as an
I hope
attendant,
it's the first one.
and I'm understanding, so
Yeah.
I can
Good.
say that.
Good. All right. So let's look at the now that we have built a basic Power App, we'll go and build the flow so that we can go through the approval. Again, we're going to do that through a single click. So we'll see how to do that. And then we'll come back to the app and see how we can add the status field and do some more additions over here. So let's go back to our list. See, if you see here, the list has two items now. And now I can add. So if I want to create a flow for this, right, I want to click on this automate button and then click on Power Automate, and then click on create a flow. So there are options here for you to start a flow right from here. So yeah, I'll click on create a flow. And this is awesome, right? I mean, you get so many templates right here. You don't have to build your flow from scratch. Um, Power Automate and SharePoint together have offered this to the users to use some of the standard templates, which are like some of the very common use cases, and then start your flow from here, and then you can customize it for your use case. So here, if you see, there is one which kind of goes along with our use case. So it says for start approval when a new item is added, right? So there are some for request approval in Teams for a selected item. So selected item means when you select an item here in the SharePoint. So let's close this for a second. If I select an item, I can start a flow for the selected item here. But we don't want to do that. We want to run our flow from like when somebody enters a new record in the app. So our trigger is not based on selection of a record, but it's based on a new record getting created in the SharePoint list. So that's why we are not going to use that selected item flow, but we're going to use um, the flow when a new item is added. In some use case that you have, you probably don't want to use a Power App. You just want to use the SharePoint list. You could use this. You could use one of these templates. But for today's session, we'll use this one.
Interesting. My own way of doing it, I would have go and I would have initiate a flow from Microsoft Power Automate and call it within Microsoft Power Apps. But seeing the fact that you can easily create your flow from SharePoint list,
Yes.
and you see template to consume, that makes a lot of sense. You don't even to create everything from scratch.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, the thing is, you can build your solution in many ways. This is not, I'm not going to say this is the best uh, path, but it is one of the good paths. As you said, you could create a flow that triggers from the Power App, but it's just a different approach, right? The benefit of doing it from a SharePoint list item creation as the trigger is that this flow can run without a user's, how would I say, without a user's context, right? And this flow can be created by a service account. So I know we are getting much more into the admin side of things, but it is something that is useful. If you want to run this flow using like a per flow license or a per user license, you probably want to do something like this, where this flow will always run when a new SharePoint list item is created.
Awesome.
Whereas the other one, if you trigger it from Power Apps, it will run, the flow will run as the user. Here, the flow will run as the person who created the flow. So there
Oh,
is a difference between those two things, right?
oh, I see. Maybe
Yeah,
I can just quickly explain this again to our learners and our audience. What Vivek is trying to explain here is there are other ways you can start your flow in this kind of context. What we do now is we are creating this flow from SharePoint, and one of the advantage is that the moment you request for approval is going to carry the name of the creator, who initiates that from Microsoft SharePoint, who create the SharePoint and the flow. And what that then means is if you have a central account where you build similar solution in your organization, take for example, you call it admin, automation admin, if that's the name of the account. So the moment you get a approval, you're going to get the approval request from automation admin. So you guys know that, okay, this is a central account and I'm being requested to
yep,
attend to a request. But if you use the Power Apps trigger, where you have to click the trigger yourself, it's going to request the approval in your name,
yep,
in the name of the user. So it's not centralized. And I agree with you, Vivek. It's
yeah.
a whole lot clearer now.
That's a great point, right? I mean, you brought out a really good point. You can centralize it. The emails also that get sent, if you trigger it from Power Apps, it will get sent from the user who created the item. Whereas if you want to use a standard, like if you have some kind of a group mailbox or some service account kind of a mailbox, you can use that connection for this kind of flow. So yeah, there's pros and cons to both, but this is something that you can, as this is a template already available, you can start with this and see what fits your use case, and if you want to change it, you can change it. So let's go through this flow first, bit step by step, and then we'll see how to customize it for our usage. So you can see here, the first step is when a new item is created, right? So this is a SharePoint trigger. It asks you for the site address and the list name. So you have the site address. This is my SharePoint site, which I have created. And then I have a list name, which is the payment memos. So it automatically, because I clicked it from this SharePoint list, it already took all those inputs in and I didn't have to do anything. And then it's added this approval step. So if you want to add an approval, um, this approval will send an email. So I'll just show you if you need to search for that. If you're doing it for a flow outside of a SharePoint list for some reason, approvals is the connection that you want to use. So start an approval. You have some fields to enter there. So you can you can choose a title. So you can change this to payment memo approval. And then it will put the title from what we entered in the SharePoint list, so the title, and then assign to. So now you'll be wondering, okay, how do we assign this to the manager, right?
Yeah.
Um, so to do that, what we'll do is we'll add a new step in here. Because you're using Power Automate, it's connected to your Microsoft 365, and you can search for Office 365 Users Connector, and this gives you a lot of options. So you have like Get My Profile, Get Manager, all this kind of thing. So you want to get a manager of person, so we'll do Get Manager. Now you'll be wondering now, this flow, as I told you earlier, is running without a user's context. It will run anytime a SharePoint list item is created. So how will we know who created it? So the good thing is this trigger gives you a lot of details for that item. So as you can see here, as soon as I clicked here, it shows me all these dynamic fields that I can get from a step before that, right? So I can choose created by, where is it? Created by. So created by has a lot of options. Created by is a user record. So there's a created by email, created by picture, created by department. The user, this action requires either the name or the email address. I generally go by email because emails are unique. You never know what could go wrong with some names. There could be like the same name two times in an organization. So always go by email. There are some advanced options, but you don't need to do that. This step will give us the manager, which we can then use in this step. So by default, it gives you an option to search. So I can search for people, but we don't want to do that. We want to dynamically add that manager. So we'll click on this add dynamic content. So I'll delete this. I'll click on add dynamic content. And if you see here, it automatically shows me only the email addresses from the previous. It knows it has some kind of, it has some intelligence to tell you, okay, this has to be sent to an email address. So it's only showing me the emails from the previous steps. So I can choose this mail, and this is the manager's email. So it will send the approval to the manager. Under details, it's putting some details about the created by, person's display name, and when it was created. But that's not going to be enough, right? We want to insert the title. So we can keep searching for the different details that you want to add. So I want to show the title. I also want to show, let's say, the amount. So I can say amount. So this is the body of the email, which will be sent as a part of this approval. So the details will go into the body. So um, the person who gets this email will see this. So amount, I'll put amount. So for this session, just show these two things and we'll proceed from here. Then the link to item link description. This also is being populated from the SharePoint list. So if you see that trigger has, if I search for link, it has a link to item. So if for some reason the person wants to see some more details on that SharePoint list, which is not there in the email, they can click on that item link. So it will open the item in the SharePoint list. In some cases, because you're doing it through PowerApps, we probably don't want to give this, right? So that we don't want to show that SharePoint list to anyone. We just want to say, use the app, don't touch the SharePoint list. So I can just delete this. I don't want to send any link. So I'll just I can remove that. So once we have the approval sent, we want to check if it was approved or rejected, right? So if it is equal, so there is, so we add a condition action. In the condition action, we're checking for response. The response is a field that we get from the approval. So we'll say response is equal to approve. So it will be either approve or rejected. So we can check for approve. And if it says approve, then we'll send an email to the person who created the SharePoint list item. We'll send you a request for this has been approved by the approver's name. And if they add any comments, it will add those comments as well. Similarly, if it is not approved, we'll use this email action to send an email of rejection. So this way you have two emails set up for either approval or for rejection. Now, one thing you'll be wondering, how does the status get changed then? So this is not part of the template, and you'll have to add another step here to change the status of the SharePoint list item so that you can basically update the status of that item. So we'll search for SharePoint, and then under the actions, we'll look for update item. So update item, again, we'll have to choose the list. So we'll the site and the list. So we'll choose the site. I'll choose the list, which is payment memos. ID. So every SharePoint list item has a unique identifier. It starts with 1 and keeps going on from there. So 1, 2, 3, and on and on. So you can get this from the trigger here. So I'll search. It already is there. So I don't even have to search for it. It knows that you're looking for this. I'll click on that. And then on the title, we'll so this is one weird aspect of this action is that it requests you the same information again. It thinks that it is required, so you have to enter the same thing. But what we can do is we can copy the same information that we got from the trigger. So I'll search for the title and just update the same thing. So it's something which is a bit weird about this action, because if it's already filled out, why should I be filling it again? But it's there and you can't avoid it for now. So all the other things you don't want to change. You only want to change the status value, right? So I'll say approved here. Similarly, I'll show you some magic now if you haven't seen already. You can copy this action and then you can click on add an action. You can select my clipboard and choose it. So what I did was I just copy pasted an action. And this would be really, really helpful when you're creating flows, because you basically want to use the same thing again here. And it copied all that. I just want to change one thing. I want to change the status to rejected. So this is a really good way to kind of, it's kind of components, right? You're reusing a created component in your flow. So you copy and paste. I know it's not as simple as doing Control-C, Control-V as you would do in a Word or PowerPoint, but it has a way of, you have a way of doing it at least. So now that we have created this flow, I'm just going to hit save. And this is going to save this flow. And now what we can do is we can add a new item and we'll see the flow being run. Now, one thing that I have to change is this is my personal tenant, so I don't have a manager. I am my own manager here, so there's nobody above me. So I have to basically assign it to myself. So I'll just click on this, and so that I can show it to you in this demo. Okay, let's choose the right one here. Save it. And then let's go to our Power App. You click on play. We'll add a new record. I'll say this is a test of approval flow. I'll choose sales. Let's do a payment 50. Not going to attach anything else. Just click on submit item. So now it has submitted. I mean, this record is submitted. Now it's added to the SharePoint list. So we'll first go to the SharePoint list. it's added. Now we'll go to the flow. You click on this back button next to the name. It will tell you that you want to save or not. Generally, you have saved it, but it just asks you again. So click on OK. And then it should show up as a flow run here. So we'll just hit refresh. Sometimes it takes within a minute maybe, but there you go. It failed. That's not a good sign, right? See why it failed though. So this is why it failed. I told you I don't have a manager, and that's why it failed. It was not able to find a manager.
Exactly.
So but this is a good way to kind of see things. If in a flow something fails, the flow just stops there. So there are some ways to get around it. I know we are getting a bit more into detail, but I like to show some tips so that you at least know that these things are available. So what I can do is, for the next step, I want to say that even if I don't get the manager, go ahead, right? I mean, um, I know in this case it will flow at this step at least, but in my case, I have chosen somebody here. So what I'll click on this and click on configure run after. So what this means is it looks at the action before and says, run this action if it's successful, or if it has failed, that's also fine. So this action will now run based on whether this first action was successful or if it failed. So this is a good tip. I mean, you would want to use this to, in this case, if it fails, maybe I want to send a message. Oh, send a message to the admin that the manager hasn't been set up for this user. Do something about it. So this way you can do some kind of error checks in your flow so that you know that it has failed and it just doesn't stop there. So now that we have changed that, I click on test. So this is another way to test your flows. Because I've already created a SharePoint list item, I don't want to create it again. I know there was a flow run that failed. You can click on automatically test flow. Then I'll say with a recently used trigger, this was the failure that happened. So I can say choose that and run this flow again using the same data. So that way I don't have to create multiple new data. I can just run it from here.
Yeah, that's look really exciting. And one point I just want to call out here is the configure run after. The configure run after, that feature is really powerful. Setting the condition that even if it fails, just run and then send message to wherever you have to. That
Yep.
looks really exciting for me.
Okay, so the approval should have gone through. Let's see. Okay, so let's look at this. So if you're using Outlook on your phone or Outlook online, you can basically approve this right from here. I don't even have to go to Power Automate or anywhere. The email comes from Microsoft Flow. It shows that this was requested by this person, so it was requested by me. And then it gives a link, which in our case, I mean, it won't work because, I mean, do have the link, but if you want to remove the link, you can just remove that. Then it says Vivek Bhavishi at Wednesday, March 3, 2021 created this. It shows the title of that, and then it shows the amount. So I'm going to say approve. I'm going to say approved. Go ahead. So this, I can enter some comments and I can hit submit. So you see here, I can do this right from here. I don't have to go open any other application anywhere. So this sent me another email, which happened as a part of the flow. So your request for this Memo has been approved by Vivek Bhavishi. Comments approved. Go ahead. So the flow that we created actually just ran, and you can see what all it did. So it started this approval. So every flow step that runs, it will show whether it ran fine or it had an error. So you see here, even though this step had an error, it went through to the next step because we did the configure and after. And now here in the condition says the expression was true. So that means the condition met, and then it informed the creator of the approval that was the email that I got, and then the update item would have updated the status. So we can see this in the SharePoint list first. So you see here it said approved. So we have an approved status on this. And you know what? You can also show this here in the Power App. So I'll add, let's just move this column like a little bit here. And then we'll add another label, or actually, yeah, we add this label. We'll change this to this item dot status. So because it's a choice, you have to sometimes click on dot multiple times to get to the actual thing, right? So the good thing is when you put this, you're like, oh, why didn't it show? You always get an error along with it, right? Okay, it expects a text value, but you are giving me a record value. A record status has the value inside like a record. So a label can only show text. So I'm put a dot and click on value. So now now you'll be like, okay, it doesn't show yet. So the reason why it's not showing is because we haven't refreshed the data source here. So this is one place where you'll see. So if you, and I don't know if you notice here, there is a database kind of icon. So if you click on data, it shows you what all data is connected in the app. So you can see here the payment memos was automatically added because we created the app from the SharePoint list. And I can click on these three dots next to it and click on refresh. So this will refresh, and as you saw, the this got up changed here, so it says approved now. You can do a bunch of things on this. You can change the text color to, let's say, white, this to green, so that way. And then you can also change the color based on the formula, right? So you can see that you have a lot of options in Power Apps. I can say that, okay, color, if this item dot status, I just have, okay, this item dot status dot value equals approved, then show me the green colors. Let's say green. Okay, I think I've chosen the wrong field here, so let me actually just copy this. I'll go to, so the color is the text color. There is a fill. Where is it? Sorry, why am I not able to get to that? Fill. Okay. So we'll change this. So if it's approved, show me green. Otherwise, show like yellow. So I know, I mean, in this case, we don't have the pending shown yet, but we can show that. So you can, I know this looks really bad, but you can make it much more better. You can align things, you can change the font, you can change the font size,
And even
all
make
those
it,
good things.
you can even make the edges of the rectangle to curve and look like a button. Those kind of
Yep.
functionalities.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do another class where we look into app makeup. Where it's sort of okay, how do you get the best UI experience? But this is about functionality, and you're
Yes.
achieving that right now because of the time.
Yep. No, that's a good point. So yeah, I think I covered, I mean, I guess I've covered a lot of stuff here. Are, are there any other questions in the chat that we need to cover?
Yeah, at the moment we have a question which I'm going to display here from Peter Wade. He is asking, so instead of using forms to create the questions to be asked, we are using Power Apps, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So he said, if yes, that means the link to the Power App can be shared with those that will be filling it, just like forms.
That's exactly right. So, and that's a good point that you brought up. I've kind of covered the functionality so far, but I want to show you how to kind of give access now to people. So you created this app. Now you're like, okay, I've created the app. How do I share this with people? So the first thing you want to do is you want to click on File, how you would do on any other tool that you use. You want to save it. So this will save it to PowerApps. And then you want to so publishing means that this app is ready now. So the work that you've done so far, you want to publish it so that others can use it. Similar to how you, if you're working on HTML or something like that, publish a page. Before that, you can edit things, but then only when it's even a SharePoint page, right? You make the edits and then you publish. So I'll click on publish this version, and then you can click on share. So it has an option right here. And this, when you click on it, it will open Power Apps in a new tab. So it shows me that I'm the owner. And now let's say I want to share this with somebody. So I can actually, so this is my wife. I'll share this app with her. I can either share with her as a user. So if she's just going to be a user, I can add her as a user. Or let's say if I want to add another person who I need help from to on the Power App, so I can make them a co-owner, and that way they can also edit the app. But for now, you're just going to add a user. So when you add this as a user, there's an option to send an email invitation. You can either send this or not send it. It's your choice. And then we'll click on share.
All right. I have a question here just to help others. What does it take to share your, when you publish your apps? Is it available by default to everyone across the organization, or do you have to, put their name one after the other? Let's say for an organization of 500 employees.
Yeah.
So how can you share with us and the audience how you can share with everyone in the organization?
Yeah. Now that's a great point. So there is something called exactly what you said, everyone. uh, so this is my tenant name, API Jedi. So if you have your organization name XYZ, it will say everyone in XYZ. So once I click that, it will share this with everyone.
Oh, great. Oh,
Yep.
great.
So, but one thing to note there is it doesn't mean that the SharePoint list is also shared with them. SharePoint list has to be shared separately, and the app has to be shared separately. Now, there are some ways to automate some things. You can, instead of, so let's say you want to share with maybe 100 people within your organization, which are a part of one department. Let's say payment memos, only finance or accounting needs to look at it. So what you can do is it will involve your IT, but then you can create this thing called security groups in Azure. So so every office admin has a, I mean, if you are using Azure Active Directory, you will have an option to create groups in there, and then you can share the app with that group. So that group, if you search for here, it will show up. A security group shows up in this search, and also SharePoint lists can be shared with security groups. So there
Oh,
are ways to do that, and maybe you want to bring in another person to kind of talk in detail about that, but there are ways to do it. Right now, it's very manual. Every time you give access to one user for the app, you have to give access to the SharePoint list for that user as well.
okay. But in the scenario where, what kind of access do you have to give to on the SharePoint?
Yep.
Should it be a read only? Should it be write? Access to write or read?
So there is a permission called contribute. Contribute means I can contribute to that list. So I can add new records. I can edit my records,
Okay.
but I cannot delete or edit somebody else's records. So that's the permission you want to give to people, right? You want to give them contribute so they can add their new stuff, but they cannot edit somebody else's. So a contribute is a permission that you want to give on your SharePoint list. And let's look at that quickly as you brought it up. So I'm going to click on list settings.
Permission.
Permissions for this list. So if you see, there is always, I mean, there are already 3 groups created by default. I don't know, it might depend on how your SharePoint admin is set up. But if they haven't done any setup, custom, this will be the default. So the members is, let me go back actually. Let's look at, yeah, that API members. And then view group permissions. So this one has edit. I mean, if I want to change that, I can change it. I guess, trying to remember now if I can edit it right from here, or is it?
Yeah,
It's. I
yeah,
think it's somewhere else.
oftentimes when you go back, you can you go back to that list permission settings. Yeah, you can actually manage. What I often do is to stop inherent permissions,
Yeah.
and then that will create my own permission level,
Yep. Yep.
which they will be grant permission. And if it's for everyone, I can then type everyone and specify what level do I
Mhm.
want to be.
Yep.
And yeah, on that show options, yeah.
So here you can see there's a permission level. So I can say contribute. So this contribute is a permission. So I guess it depends on what your use case is. But contribute is a good permission to give if you just want people to add their own records and not change or delete somebody else's.
Thank you so much. So we now have a full functional application built under an app, and this app manages approval flow. Payment memo approval. You can just click on the app. I also want to add that people within your organization. So there is Power Apps application on Play Store, iOS, and Microsoft Store. And once you have the application installed on your phone, if any app is shared with you across the organization, you're going to see the list of those applications when you log into that Power Apps. So
That's
that's
right.
where you will see the list of applications that has been shared with you. Unlike Microsoft Forms, that you have to look for the link, but here you just open that Power Apps and you see all the applications that has been shared with you across the organization. So different app for different functionality, and you can then click on the one you want to use and make use of it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean, forms are just links, but whereas apps are kind of shared with each user, so you can open up and whatever is shared with you, you'll already see that in your list. So this is one place I wanted to show you. So if you go from when you are on your Office, like when you log into Office, if you click on this waffle icon on the top left, there's Power Apps. And this will basically take you to the same place which I was showing you earlier. So you can see under apps, payment memos. And the good thing is, even if you're building a mobile app, it shows up here as well on your desktop. It just will show in a mobile kind of layout, but it still works. You can still click on this item, edit it, all the things that we were able to do. You can either do it on the phone or on your desktop. So the same application you can use on desktop, phone, tablet, anywhere, right? So that's you with a button click. Think about it again. With a button click, you are able to create an app which can be used by people across devices very easily.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Vivek. It is really exciting. There are other things we can do which we will consider in another session. Things like how do you have maybe a login screen, maybe not, or a welcome screen. And then when you load the application, it lands you on the screen on the landing page, and when you click a button, then moves you to the page where you can then start creating your request. But what we have today is already functional, and you can see in the space of 1 hour we've been able to build that together. That was because we are learning while building. If Vivek is to build this under 30 minutes, the app is running. If you give him 1 hour to build the same solution, you will see a very functional UI and something really great. So here is it. These things are highly transformational. Years back, like I said, in the first wave of industrial revolution, or so, first wave of digital transformation, you see people who are able to build an application, and that's sort of change the entire world that you can use and have to achieve that level of functionality. But
Yeah.
today, it is not just that an application can do that, but that you can build an application under 30 minutes to do same thing that would have taken a team to do under 3, 5, 7, 9 months. Now you do that under 30 minutes. That's huge and highly transformational. And this is why it doesn't respect what you study as a background. You sit together, we'll be able to build this. Personally, I am going to go back, consume this same video, and recreate this. Remember, Vivek came from a marketing background, and a couple of months before ago, he just switched to the Power Platform space. So he's now a Power Platform consultant, because today we have more jobs than the skills, and that is it. This is why you have to ride on this second wave by learning it. And how do you learn if you do not practice? And how can you practice if you don't have the opportunity to be the use case? So we have one with us. We've done one the last episode of Microsoft Powernight. Recreate that one, recreate this one as well. You're already building for yourself portfolios. And the same work experience you want to have when you start working as a Power Platform, developer or app maker or consultant is what you're already getting through this platform. Yeah, I can't thank Vivek enough because it's been an awesome time tonight. Just before we go, there is a question again from Peter here. He's asking that maybe I missed it. Does sharing Power App also share the SharePoint list with them? What if I only want a select few people to be able to see SharePoint list? For instance, just says managers.
So I guess there are a few questions in there, so I'll try to answer them one by one. So sharing the app with a person doesn't share the SharePoint list as well. So if you need to give access for somebody to enter these um, um, payment memos, you will have to give them access to the app, and also you'll have to give them access to the SharePoint list, at least as a contribute permission level. So the next one was, what if I only want to select few people to be able to see SharePoint list? So I'm assuming the question here is about how, like, if you want people to use the app, but you don't want people to see the SharePoint list. I think that's probably the question. There is an option there on the SharePoint list. I have to look this up, but I think there is one video where somebody covered how you can not show a SharePoint list at all on the SharePoint list page. So there is a way to disable kind of viewing the SharePoint list. So I don't know if I answered that question correctly, but I, you can decide the permission levels differently for different people. Sales managers can see more. I I guess they can have more rights. They can edit things and stuff. So you can give them, you can create a sales managers group and then give them an edit permission. Whereas sales specialists can just get contribute permission. So
Great.
yeah.
I believe that sort of answered that question, and very straightforward. Yeah, when you share Power Apps, you have to share the access to the data that is driving it as well. And since we're using SharePoint in this case, it might be good to give at the minimum maybe contributor level for access. Also, in another, the next episode of Microsoft Powernight, which is coming March 17, we'll be considering logging, checking, employee checking application, how to build a checking application. This time around, leveraging on Project Oakdale. Project Oakdale is one of those things introduced by Microsoft sometimes last year, I think in 2020, and the goal is to make it possible to develop application within Microsoft Teams. So it has its own data, which is Dataverse, and that whole concept will be introduced to us. Remember, it is from known to unknown. And today we build, a functional application. You know what it means to have SharePoint as your database, so to say. In another demo, in another session we're going to have, we will also consider how using Project Oakdale, the Dataverse within Microsoft Teams. Let me say a very big and huge thank you on behalf of Microsoft Power Night community. A big thank you to Vivek for this time. It's so valuable to us. And of course, in a couple of months, the success story of the community members, being able to upskill themselves and securing job, making it through the interview stages, having ability to secure the opportunity to change their career. I believe these success stories will also inspire, you, and we're going to share that alongside with everyone that has come here to impact them one way or the other. We're going to keep you updated about the progress we're making as a community, and we hope to also have you again and again and again to also share more of this words of wisdom with us.
Yeah, thank you again for having me, and it's my honor to be here, and I'm happy that I was able to contribute something to this community. And I just want to say one thing, that what I showed you is like a teaser, right? It's a teaser for you to get more interested and do more. There's a lot of content available online. There are some great um, YouTubers, Shane Young, April Dunham, good friends of mine. They have a lot of videos on Power Apps. So it think about these sessions as like triggers to for you to do more. Because I saw some session like this, got curious more and kept doing more and more myself. So it's not just these sessions. You will have to kind of get more curious and start doing more by kind of just exploring yourself. So everyone has their own learning journey. There are some good ways to learn right now. There are Microsoft Learning Paths. There is a lot of content online, but yeah, it's somewhere you need to get triggered to start to to be able to be more, like, you need to have that interest in doing more, right? So yeah.
All right, thank you. And there is a comment here from Philip. He is saying that next session that he would love to have us, build an apps with SQL as database. Okay, I'm just going to put it this way: that when you start building Power applications, most of the time, especially within the organization, you might just want to, rest on these free solutions, data, free to get databases or possible data sources like the SharePoint list we use today or Dataverse. Dataverse has that synchronization. I think we need to have a class on Dataverse so that we understand how it's connected, within the Microsoft ecosystem, how most of the applications rest on it, and the entire Power Platform, Power Apps actually rest on Dataverse. So in terms of our database storage, well,
Yeah.
we'll bring people who can address that. But I might also want to see why, because this is more like a traditional developer who used to SQL database or server databases that we use within the organization. But when it comes to building an app with Power Apps, you might not even have to go the route of SQL as a database. What do you have to say to that?
I think that's a great point. I mean, you brought up one thing, like, if why not look at Dataverse or Dataverse for Teams as the database? Because SharePoint, as you said, it's a single. I mean, it's multiple tables. It's all just single table. There's no relational data that you can create. Whereas with SQL or Dataverse, you can create one is to many, many is to many, many is to one. All that kind of really, like, um, kind of relations between fields. So definitely something that you want to, learn. But at the same time, I know why SQL is also important, because there are so many businesses which have the system that they're using currently are based out of SQL, and it's not that easy to change from one database to another because all your systems are based on it. So I understand the requirement of SQL. Just a note there: if you use SQL as a database, you will have to use a Power Apps kind of premium standalone license, because the SQL connector doesn't come standard.
Yeah.
SharePoint you can build for free if you have a Office 365 license, but not the SQL ones. You will need a standalone premium license for that.
Oh, okay, great. So thank you so much, Vivek, because you seems to address that point much more than I did. Speaking to the needs of a secret database, which is also very valid.
Yep.
Like you said. However, one more thing to consider is, as a learner, as a beginner, you will need a premium, a standard license to, because SQL, I believe, is a premium connector.
Yes.
So those connectors are premium connectors. You need a
So
standard license.
yeah,
But with SharePoint, with database, some level database within Microsoft Teams is still free. But when you are developing applications, sharing with organizations, extending the limit of the storage, you might have to get some license. Okay,
yeah.
we'll definitely bring back this subject as well.
We do have few minutes, right? We still have some time. I just want to show one thing
Okay,
which will be really useful for people who want to play around with things. So there's something, if you can put my screen, um,
okay,
yeah, just for 1 second. So there's
okay,
something called PowerApps Community Plan, which if you have a work account, you can click on Get Started for free, and what it will give you is an individual environment. So any app that you create in this cannot be shared with users, but you can use any connector. You can use all the premium connectors. You can even do some AI builder stuff. So if you want to just play around, let's say, Philippe, you want to play around with SQL connectors, go ahead, create this plan. You can sign up for this plan, and you can do anything you want, any premium connector, without buying any license. So the only catch is you cannot share it with anyone else. So if you want to use something for your organization, you will eventually have to buy licenses. But for playing around, for to test something or to just build a proof of concept, community plan is a great way to start kind of doing some things. All you can access all the premium connectors. That's what
okay,
I wanted to show you.
okay, great. So the developer account, does it give you the same access?
You're talking about the Office 365 developer account?
Yes.
That gives you a license, like an Office 365 license, but it doesn't give you all the Power Apps
Okay.
premium connections.
Okay.
So within the developer account, you can sign up for a community plan for Power Apps.
All right. All right. Thank you. I think this just makes a lot of sense now. So, Philip, this is an opportunity to explore this functionality of SQL database without additional license for learning purposes. And once you have your proof of concept, it is then easier to introduce that kind of solution to your organization.
Yeah,
All right, awesome. It's been a night of learning, and thank you, Vivek, for making it so. To
sure.
everyone that has joined us, I appreciate you for the time. This is a time you commit to learning, and they will definitely pay. Okay, so please don't forget, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. This is where all our events is going to be coming up live every time. Every 2 weeks, we host this show. In the post, the mail that is going to be shared with the community member after this call, I'm going to put a link to Vivek's profile where you'll be able to have access to his LinkedIn, his YouTube channel, his Twitter account. I will encourage everyone to follow him, on subscribe to his YouTube channel, follow him on Twitter, on LinkedIn, because he has a lot of useful information and resources to help us. Almost every time, new updates, new resources. You see, Vivek posting and sharing that on LinkedIn. I always look forward to his post. because when I see that, okay, yeah, I'm definitely sure this is something new. This is an announcement. This is a news about those features. So I will encourage everyone to also do so. Follow him and be part of this growing community. Thank you all, and it's time to say bye for now.